In the shadow of a shattered moon, Commander Elias Kane plots humanity's last stand against the Dominion and alien empire that reduced Earth to ashes. Outnumbered and outgunned, Kane turns prey into predator, igniting a war to reclaim hope from extinction. Dive into this epic tale of defiance read on. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more captivating videos and to inspire even more amazing content. The void was silent, save for the distant hum of the Revenant's aging engines. A relic of Earth's last fleet, the battleship drifted in the ruins of a shattered moon masked by debris, cloaked in shadows. It was the perfect hiding spot. But hiding wasn't the plan anymore. Commander Elias Kane stood on the bridge, a silent figure in a war zone of holographic readouts and flickering displays. His dark eyes were fixed on a red pulse in the center of the screen. A transmission. Dominion encryption. He gestured, and the signal cracked open. A guttural voice, thick with alien arrogance, poured through the ships. The extermination of the soul remnants will commence in 6 rotations. The last of their kind will be purged. Earth is dust. Their resistance is a joke. Soon, humanity will be nothing but myth. The voice clicked off. The bridge fell into stillness. No one spoke. No one moved. Every man and woman aboard had lived through the massacres, had lost something: family, homes, a future. They had spent years fighting, surviving, running. Always running. Kane exhaled, slow and controlled, knuckles whitening against the railing. He had seen too many losses. Too many friends turned to vapor under Dominion warships. The bastards thought humanity was done, thought they had broken them. They were wrong. Kane turned, voice like steel. We hid them first. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the bridge. Lieutenant Reyes, his second in command, stepped forward, her face etched with, "Sir, we barely have enough firepower to keep ourselves alive, let alone strike." She wasn't wrong. Humanity's fleet was a fraction of what it had been: a handful of scavenged warships, patched together with whatever tech they could salvage. The Dominion outnumbered them 100 to 1. Didn't matter. Kane had never cared about the odds. "We've spent too long in the dirt, Reyes, watching them burn our colonies, slaughtering us like animals." He turned to face the crew, his voice low but seething with conviction. "If we wait, we die. If we run, we die. But if we fight," his gaze burned through the dim light, "we change the game." Silence. Then, slowly, someone at the comm station stood. Then another. Then another. One by one, fists clenched, jaws tightened. Reyes exhaled through her nose, then nodded. "All right, what's the plan?" Kane turned back to the holographic map, the Dominion war routes glowing like a... "The Dominion thinks we're prey. We proved them wrong." His finger jabbed at a red-marked sector. "Their war machine runs on resources. We hid their supply chains." "Hard?" Reyes' lips curled. "Guerrilla strikes." Kane nodded. "Disrupt, destroy, disappear. We make them bleed until they realize they're not hunting anymore. They're being hunted." A pause. Then, across the bridge, a single word cut through the silence. "Hell yeah." The war room aboard the Revenant was dim, the only illumination coming from flickering holograms of Dominion fleet movements and supply chains. The ship's reactors struggled to keep the systems online, but no one in the room. They weren't here for comfort. They were here to start a war. Commander Elias Kane stood at the center, hands planted firmly on the steel. Around him, his warband, the last ghosts of humanity. Former soldiers, ex-smugglers, rogue engineers, and the kind of people who thrived on the edge of extinction. "The Dominion runs on logistics," Kane began, voice sharp and measured. "Food, ammunition, fuel. Without it, their fleets don't move. Their soldiers don't fight. Their empire doesn't function." He tapped a red-marked trade lane on the map. "This supply convoy here. It's feeding the same war machine that's been hunting us for years." Eyes locked onto the display. A Dominion convoy, a heavily armed resource hauler, escorted by 3 warships. A gruff voice cut through the silence. "That's a damn death wish, Kane." Sergeant Riggs, broad-shouldered, scarred, a man who had seen the worst of the war and lived to. He leaned forward, arms crossed. "We barely have the firepower for a bar fight." "That's a Dominion fleet." Kane met his stare. "It's not a fleet, it's a target." Lieutenant Reyes, ever the pragmatist, leaned in, scanning the data. Their escorts are automated sentry ships. No organic crew, just AI, running standard patrol algorithms. She paused, calculating. "If we jam their sensors, they'll be flying blind." Kane nodded. "Exactly. We don't fight fair. We jam them, we board them, and we take everything we can carry. And if we can't carry it," his eyes darkened, "we burn it." A beat of silence, the air thick with tension. Then, a chuckle, soft at first, then louder. Riggs grinned, shaking his head. "Hell, if we're going out, we might as well go out swinging." The room shifted. Skepticism melted into something sharper. Determination. Reyes exchanged a glance with Kane, then tapped a point on the map. "If we come out of slip space here, right behind the asteroid belt, we can use the debris to mask our approach. Hit them before they even know we're there." Kane smirked. "Now you're thinking like a hunter." A chorus of murmurs, fists clenching, heads nodding. For years, they had been nothing but prey, running, hiding, losing. Now they were the ones setting the trap. Kane straightened. "Prep the fleet. We launch in 6 hours." As the war room emptied, Reyes lingered. "You really think this will work?" Kane exhaled, rolling his shoulders. "No idea." He glanced at her. "But I do know one thing." She raised an eyebrow. His smirk returned, sharp and cold. "The Dominion's about to learn what it feels like to be afraid." The Dominion supply convoy cut through the darkness of deep space, its escorts drifting in tight formation. The lead warship, a Cathar Sentinel-class destroyer, pulsed with sensor. Sweep scold, methodical, utterly unaware of the silent ghosts lurking in the. Aboard the Revenant, Kane stood at the helm, eyes locked on the targeting. The convoy was moving exactly as predicted, the Dominion sentry ships sticking to their pre-programmed patrol routes. Signal blackout in 3, 2, 1. A soft thunk echoed through the ship as Reyes activated the jamming array. Dominion sensors flared, then blinked out. Their escorts went blind. "Showtime. All units engage," Kane commanded. From the cover of the asteroids, the Revenant and to smaller strike ships burst forward, thrusters burning hot. The first volley was pure brutality, a concentrated railgun burst that ripped through one of the escort ships, tearing its hull apart before the AI could. The second escort twisted violently, its automated systems scrambling too. Too late, a spread of torpedoes found their mark. Boom! The warship cracked open like a drop plate. The Dominion's last escort finally registered the attack, its weapons cycling too. And then the Revenant hit it with an EMP burst. The ship froze mid-maneuver, systems fried. "Dead in space. Moving. Secure the hauler," Kane barked. The supply freighter, an enormous Dominion hauler packed with fuel, ammunition, and food for the war front, was their prize. It was slowing now, its crew finally realizing what was happening. Kane didn't give them a chance to recover. "Boarding teams, go." From the underbelly of the Revenant, a dropship streaked toward the hauler, magnetic clamps hissing as they latched onto its hull. Seconds later, the airlock was breached. Inside, Dominion soldiers scrambled, reptilian forms moving with panicked. They were used to exterminating weakling humans from orbit, not fighting them in. Kane led the charge. Boots hit steel. Plasma fire erupted, lighting the corridors in flickering bursts. A Dominion warrior lunged at him, claws flashing. Kane sidestepped and drove his combat knife into its throat, twisting hard. The alien gurgled and dropped. Reyes cut down to more with control bursts from her pulse rifle. Riggs, all brute force, ripped a Dominion officer from its command console and threw it headfirst into the bulkhead. The crack was sickening. Minutes passed in a haze of smoke, blood and scorched metal. Then silence. Bridge secured, Reyes panted, pressing her back against the console. Kane exhaled, surveying the damage. The hauler was theirs. Cargo. A resistance tech skimmed a display. Fuel, munitions, rations, and the tech's eyes widened. "Sir, we've got Dominion encryption keys." Kane's smirk was slow, sharp, and filled with promise. "Oh, we're gonna make them regret that." The Dominion didn't stay blind for long. The moment Kane and his crew cracked the encryption keys, Dominion were flared back to life. Threat pings, tactical alerts. Somewhere out in the vastness of space, High Executor Xal'zor had just learned that the so-called helpless humans had taken a ship right from under his snout. And he was pissed. Aboard the Revenant, Kane stood in the dim light of the command deck, watching real-time feeds from their stolen Dominion hauler. The encrypted channels revealed Dominion fleet movements ships were routing. The enemy was shifting its weight. "Damn," Reyes muttered beside him, arms crossed. "They're not wasting time." Kane's smirk was sharp. "They're afraid, or they're baiting us into overplaying our hand." Kane nodded. She wasn't wrong. The Cathar weren't known for mercy. They had spent years wiping out human colonies with mechanical precision. No surrender, no negotiations, just eradication. But they had never faced prey that bit back. The comm station pinged. A transmission. Encrypted Dominion frequency. The bridge crew tensed as the display flickered. Then, an image formed massive, scaled, and coiled in shadow. High Executor Xal'zor. His slit-pupiled eyes gleamed with cold amusement. "You insult me, little human." His voice was a guttural purr, calculated and... "Did you think I wouldn't notice? That I wouldn't come for you?" Kane leaned against the console, unfazed. "Took you long enough." Xal'zor bared his needle-sharp teeth. "I have let your kind scurry in the dark for too long. That ends now." The transmission cut. A single blip appeared on the long-range scanners. Then another, and another. Reyes cursed. "Shit, they're triangulating us." Kane turned to the helm. "We need to move. Now." Engines flared as the Revenant and its stolen hauler surged forward, punching. The Cathar were fast, but Kane knew how to vanish. For now, they dropped out of slip space hours later, deep in the ruins of a shattered star. Massive debris fields stretched across the void wreckage from a long dead battle, twisted metal glinting in the dim glow of a dying sun. Riggs let out a low whistle. Graveyards big enough to hide in. Kane wasn't listening. His mind was already racing. The Dominion had been caught off guard once. That wouldn't happen again. But if they wanted to keep winning, they couldn't just run. They had to go for the throat. Kane turned to the holomap, eyes locking onto a single, pulsing marker. The Dominion's primary war foundry. "This is where we hit them next." Reyes stared at him. "You're insane." Kane's smirk was grim. "No, I'm just done being hunted." The Dominion war foundry loomed ahead of floating fortress, carved from man, asteroid and reinforced with layers of obsidian black plating. It was a beast, bristling with orbital cannons and flanked by massive Cathar. Warships standing guard like predators in the void. It was where the Dominion built its dreadnoughts, the same war machines that had burned Earth to cinders. And Kane was going to bring it all crashing down. Inside the Revenant's cramped drop bay, the boarding team suited up. Black infiltration armor, magnetic boots, pulse rifles locked and loaded. The air was thick with adrenaline and sweat. Kane checked his weapon, then scanned his team Reyes, Riggs, and a dozen of the best fighters they had left. Every one of them had lost something to the Cathar. Now, they had a chance to take everything back. "Once we breach the hull, we move fast," Kane said, his voice steady. Silent, surgical. "Get to the main control hub, plant the virus, and blow their reactors. We hit them hard enough. This foundry burns and the Dominion feels it across the..." No one hesitated. No one doubted. They were done running. The stolen Dominion hauler coasted toward the foundry's docking bay, broadcasting Cathar clearance codes ripped from the dead crew. The foundry's automated defenses scanned it, hesitated, then accepted. They were in. The moment the docking clamps engaged, Kane's team moved. The airlock hissed open. Muzzles flashed. Suppressed gunfire. The first wave of Dominion guards didn't even have time to scream. Kane led the charge, boots pounding against the steel deck. Hallways twisted ahead, flickering red from emergency lighting. The foundry was vast, a labyrinth of towering assembly lines, molten metal, pouring into warship hulls like rivers of liquid fire. They split into two squads, one moving toward the reactor core, the other toward. Reyes stayed close to Kane. This place is too quiet. She was right. Something was off. Too late. An alarm shrieked through the halls. Gunfire erupted from the catwalks above. Dominion warriors, heavily armed, well-prepared, poured in from all directions. It was a trap. Kane's gut turned to ice. Xal'zor had baited them. Plasma fire screamed through the air. One of their fighters took a shot to the chest and collapsed, smoking. Riggs dropped to one knee, hurling a grenade into a cluster of enemies. The explosion tore them apart, but more kept coming. Kane slammed against a bulkhead, pulse rifle kicking in his hands. Reyes, how close are we? She was hacking a Dominion terminal, fingers flying. Viruses uploading 30 seconds. They didn't have 30 seconds. More Cathar warriors swarmed in. A massive, scale brute swung a blade at Kane's head he barely dodged, countering with a knife to the gut. The alien roared, staggering back before Kane emptied his rifle into its chest. 15 seconds. Fall back to the docks, Kane shouted. But Reyes went still. Kane, the reactors? He turned. The display flickered. Self-destruct sequence initiated. The entire foundry was rigged to blow. A cold realization hit Kane like a punch to the gut. They weren't here to destroy the foundry. They were here to die in it. 10 minutes until detonation. The red countdown pulsed on every display, reflected in the bloodstains of the Dominion War foundry. Kane's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a countermeasure. This was a kill box. Xal'zor hadn't just anticipated their attack, he designed it. Blow the reactors, take the entire human resistance with them. A guttural snarl crackled through the foundry speakers. Run, little human. Xal'zor's voice oozed amusement, layered with static. Scurry like the vermin you are. There is nowhere to hide. A rumble shook the station as fuel lines erupted into fire. Overhead, Dominion warriors were already falling back, retreating to their. They weren't trying to win the fight. They were sealing the doors behind them. Kane slammed his fist against the nearest console. Damn it, he wasn't going to let it end here. Reyes, options. Reyes was already moving, boots skidding against the metal deck as she brought. The main docking bay is sealed. We need another way out. Riggs snapped a fresh mag into his rifle. Ain't got time to cut through bulkheads. Commander. Kane's eyes flicked to the holographic display. One route, one shot, a cargo rail, a launch tube designed to eject half-assembled warships into orbit. Right now, it was lined with unfinished Dominion dreadnought hulls, waiting for. Kane pointed. We ride one of those out. Reyes' brow shot up. That's insane. Kane didn't blink. Yeah, 7 minutes until detonation. He spun toward his team. Get to the tube. Move. They sprinted through the burning corridors, bodies silhouetted by waves of. The foundry was eating itself alive, steel groaned, catwalks collapsed, and fuel. Conduits burst like ruptured veins. A Dominion soldier dropped from above, plasma rifle blazing. Kane ducked low. 3 shots to the chest. The alien crumpled. Riggs' shoulder checked another into a furnace, its death scream swallowed by. Reyes skidded to a halt at the edge of the launch tube. A massive dreadnought frame sat in its magnetic clamps, a half-built skeleton of. She ripped open the console. I can override the launch sequence, but this thing wasn't meant to carry. We need a shield. 5 minutes. Kane's brain worked fast. Weapons cache. Find anything with plating, strap it down. The team scattered, pulling blast panels, reinforce plating anything that could. Reyes jammed a power cell into the control panel. If we do this, we'll be shot into space at sublight speeds. Kane smirked. Then we better hold on. She punched the override. The clamps released. The dreadnought frame lurched forward. The launch sequence fired. And suddenly, they were falling a steel coffin hurtling into the abyss. Behind them, the foundry detonated. Fire, debris, and the shattered bones of a Dominion war machine erupted into the. Kane's radio crackled. "Xal'zor, you son of a bitch," Kane exhaled, staring at the explosion behind. "You should have made sure we were dead." Zero-G was a son of a bitch. Kane's stomach lurched as the stolen dreadnought frame tumbled through the void. The blast wave from the foundry's destruction had kicked them into a chaotic free fall, debris streaking past like jagged meteors. He gritted his teeth and grabbed onto a loose bulkhead, steadying himself. His entire team was still alive, strapped to whatever plating they could grab. Some were already activating their mag boots, locking themselves down. The foundry was gone, but they weren't safe yet. Kane's HUD flickered with a warning. Enemy signatures inbound. A Dominion Fleet 5 warships, including a battleship, was closing in, scanning. They had expected to find wreckage. Instead, they were about to get something worse. A counterattack. Kane ripped his comm open. "Reyes, status on the Dominion AI." She was already working, pulling a salvaged Dominion command module from her. Its alien interface pulsed, a tangled mess of encrypted code. "It's linked, but I need time to break their firewalls." "We don't have time." A harsh beep sounded. A Dominion corvette had locked onto them. A streak of light. Plasma fire. Kane's earpiece exploded with static as the dreadnought frame shook under. Metal screeched. A chunk of hull plating spun off into the void. Then, a transmission crackled to life. "Fleeing already, human?" Xal'zor's voice, laced with amusement. "You fight like an insect. No matter how many of my ships you steal, you will always be prey." Kane wiped blood from his mouth, breathing heavy. Big talk for a bastard who just lost a billion credit foundry. A low growl from the other end. "Your death will be enjoyable." The battleship's weapons charged. Kane's mind raced. They needed a way out. Then Reyes hacked through. "I've got control," she gasped. "I can reprogram one of their ships. Just give me a target." Kane's eyes locked onto the Dominion battleship. That was the heart of Xal'zor's fleet. Take that down, and they had a fighting chance. "Hijack their flagship," Kane ordered. "Turn their own guns against them." Reyes didn't hesitate. She jammed the encryption module into her datapad, fingers flying across the. Then, the Dominion battleship's lights flickered. Its engines faltered. And then it turned. Aboard the Dominion bridge, Xal'zor must have realized it too late. The battleship's own cannons rotated not toward the humans, but toward his own. Plasma lanced through the void. Friendly fire. To Dominion corvettes went up in flames instantly. Panic rippled through their comms. Their formation shattered. Kane grinned. That's more like it. The hunters had just become the hunted. Xal'zor roared in fury. His battleship's own weapons had turned against him, ripping through his fleet. Like a pack of starving beasts. Plasma fire lit up the void, shattering Dominion corvettes as they panicked. Crews scrambled to regain control. But Kane wasn't watching the destruction. He was coming for Xal'zor personally. The hijacked battleship's main hangar bay was vast, a cathedral of steel, and rows of Dominion fighters lined the walls, their engines dark. The few remaining crew members lay dead courtesy of Kane's team, who threw them like a blade. Now, at the center of the bay, Xal'zor stood waiting. The Cathar warlord was massive, nearly 8 feet of coiled muscle and armored. Scales, his fur-clawed hands flexing with anticipation. His deep-set, reptilian eyes gleamed in the dim red light. A long, curved warblade rested in his grip, its edges humming with plasma. Kane stepped forward, pulse rifle aimed squarely at the warlord's skull. Xal'zor tilted his head, the faintest hint of amusement in his snarl. "A gun." How's human? Kane smirked, then tossed the rifle aside. Xal'zor's eyes narrowed. Kane drew his combat knife. The warlord let out a deep, rumbling laugh. Brave, but foolish. Then he charged. Kane dove forward, ducking under the first swing of Xal'zor's warblade. The heat of the plasma blade sizzled past his face. He rolled, came up fast, and slashed at the warlord's side. The knife bit deep, but Xal'zor barely flinched. Instead, the warlord's upper arms grabbed Kane by the vest, lifting him off the... Xal'zor's lower hands grabbed Kane's wrist and squeezed. Bones cracked. Kane gritted his teeth, fighting against the pain. Then he headbutted the bastard. The impact staggered Xal'zor for just a second, but a second was all Kane needed. He twisted free, landed hard, and drove his knife straight into the warlord's. Xal'zor roared, swiping out with a clawed hand to fast. Kane felt talons rake across his ribs, slicing through armor and into flesh. He hit the ground, pain lancing through his side. Blood spilled. Xal'zor loomed over him, his warblade raised high. You die here, human. Kane's vision blurred, but he grinned through the pain. Yeah. He reached into his belt. Then I'm taking you with me. His fingers found the detonator. Xal'zor's eyes widened to late. The charges exploded. The hangar ripped apart, fire and shrapnel tearing through the deck. The force hurled Xal'zor backward, smashing him against a support beam with a... Kane staggered to his feet, knife still clenched in his bloodied hand. Xal'zor lay motionless, his once proud form broken, dying. Kane limped forward, looming over him now. You thought we were prey. He raised his knife. We are the hunters. He plunged the blade into Xal'zor's throat. Kane staggered, his body screaming in protest. His side burned where Xal'zor's claws had raked through flesh and armor. Blood seeped through his combat vest, but he pushed forward. The Dominion battleship shuddered beneath his feet, systems failing, alarms. The warlord lay in a broken heap, black Dominion blood pooling beneath his. Kane had done it, but the fight wasn't over. Reyes' voice crackled over the comms. Kane, we need to move now. Kane exhaled sharply, forcing himself upright. He turned toward the blast doors just as they slid open. Reyes, Riggs, and the rest of the team rushing inside. Riggs skidded to a stop, eyeing Xal'zor's corpse. Damn, he grinned. Didn't leave much of him. Huh? Kane wiped blood from his mouth. Bastard had it coming. Reyes barely spared the body a glance. No time to celebrate. The ship's in meltdown. The AI hijack overloaded the core. We've got 3 minutes before this thing. Kane snapped back into focus. Evac plan? Reyes pointed behind her. Took the liberty of grabbing a shuttle. Thought you might need a ride. Kane's lips curled into a smirk. You're a damn good exo. She grabbed his arm, hauling him toward the exit. Shut up and move. They raced through the corridors, the battleship crumbling around them. Fire spewed from ruptured coolant lines. Bulkheads buckled under the strain. The Dominion crew was in full retreat, scattering like rats in a sinking ship. The hangar was a war zone, half the fighters abandoned, fuel spilling across the deck in shimmering pools. At the far end, a sleek Dominion shuttle sat primed and waiting. Kane's team sprinted for it. Gunfire erupted. A straggling squad of Dominion warriors made a final, desperate stand. Riggs spun, his rifle barking. T'Kathar fell, body slamming against the deck. Kane whipped up his pistol, planting a shot squarely in the last warriors. Then they were at the shuttle. Reyes smashed the controls. The hatch hissed open. They piled inside. Kane collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, just heaving. Reyes didn't wait for clearance. She punched the thrusters, and the shuttle rocketed out of the hangar bay. Behind them, the battleship detonated. A blinding white shockwave ripped through the void, shattering the massive war machine into 1,000 burning fragments. The fireball expanded, consuming the remaining Dominion corvettes Katu. Kane watched through the viewport, his expression unreadable. The war foundry was gone. Xal'zor was dead, and for the first time in years, humanity had struck fear into the Dominion. Reyes exhaled. We actually pulled it off. Kane smirked, the fire still burning in his eyes. This was just the beginning. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, unbroken and cold. The shuttle's engines hummed low, steady a stark contrast to the chaos they had. Kane sat in the co-pilot's seat, staring out into the void. His ribs ached, his side was a mess of dried blood, and his uniform was barely. But none of that mattered. He was alive, and Xal'zor wasn't. Behind him, Reyes was monitoring comms, scanning for friendly signals. Riggs sat on a crate, wrapping a bandage around his burned forearm, muttering something about needing a drink the size of a fuel tank. The moment stretched, heavy with exhaustion and the unspoken weight of what they. Then, the comms panel flickered to life. A transmission secure human channels. Reyes tapped a command, and the screen lit up with a live feed. Dozens of faces appeared, broadcasting from scattered human outposts, hidden colonies, battered resistance ships. They had seen the battle. Kane straightened as a grizzled commander from a distant cell spoke first. We saw the Dominion ships go dark. Their networks are a mess. Did you really just take out a High Executor? Kane nodded. We burned their foundry, and we took their biggest bastard down with it. A beat of silence. Then, slowly, murmurs of shock turned to something else. Ah, belief. Another voice broke through, a young woman, scars across her cheek, broadcasting from what looked like a hidden bunker. For years, they've hunted us, treated us like animals, but you just proved them wrong. More voices joined. A soldier from the Jovian rings, they can be beaten. An old resistance leader from a shattered lunar colony. Humanity isn't done. Then, another voice. Calm, controlled, sharp as steel. The Dominion will come for you, Kane. Kane smirked. Let them. His voice carried across the comms, across every last survivor still fighting in. They thought we were prey. They thought we'd die in the dirt. But we're still here, and we just tore their throats out. He leaned forward, gaze hard. We take the fight to them. We hit their supply chains. We hijack their warships. We burn their strongholds to the ground. We show them exactly what it means to fear humans. The comms exploded with voices. Cheers, roars, battle cries. The war had just begun. Kane turned to Reyes, the fire still burning in his eyes. Send the word. We're not running anymore. She grinned, already relaying the message. Outside, the darkness stretched on. But this time, humanity wasn't hiding in it. This time, they were the hunters. And the Dominion? They were about to learn that extinction works both ways.